Hey guys, how's it going? So welcome back to another episode of the Offset Yo-Yo podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Vu, two-time Australian national yo-yo champion and yo-yoing YouTuber, and today we are interviewing a very, very special guest who generally doesn't really need an introduction, but this is going to be none other than Evan Nagao. So, for those of you guys who are listening on Spotify, Apple Music, this isn't really going to apply to you, but for those of you guys on the YouTube channel, I'm trying to add a little bit more video to the uploads of the Offset Yo-Yo podcast, so let me know if you guys prefer this format better, or if you don't, either way, just comment down below. And yeah, about today's guest. So Evan, who really doesn't need an introduction, is basically started yo-yoing basically when he was born. So he yo-yoed from like the age of 1 and is kind of dubbed as this yo-yo prodigy. From then it's kind of been a consistent through line throughout his life. He then started yo-yoing and hit the scene in 2014, 2015 and hit the stage with like really explosive bangers and kind of became the people's champion. And then he really got serious, so around then he became the 2-time US national yo-yo champion and he became the 2018 World Yo-Yo Champion in 1A. Evan is now currently pursuing a career in music, and we basically unpack all of it, from what it's like growing up with the yo-yo to how you actually go about strategically winning a contest like Worlds, and what it's like being a musician. One other thing I'd like to shout out is that Evan's new album that he's kind of dropping is called Love, and you can guys check that out on all of the various streaming platforms, but you can also check it out at his YouTube channel at Evan from Heaven. So if you guys could go check that out, subscribe to Evan. He's been working really, really hard on this album. It is great, and it is out as of now, November 17th. So go ahead, check that out. So without further ado, here is my very, very in-depth, wide-ranging conversation with Evan Nagao. Evan, welcome to the show.
Dude, thanks, man. Thanks for having me, dude. Oh my God, I'm actually really stoked just to like talk, and even though it's recorded and stuff, like just getting to like catch up and stuff, because it's been like probably 2, 3, 4 years maybe. I don't even know. It's been a while.
It's been a long time, man, and it's definitely been like you were like one of the people who I had met, you know, very early on in the yo-yoing community. So you were probably like one of the first American players that I properly met. So it's good to kind of take it all back.
Dude, that's crazy. So that one time, yeah, you came to California and I was there. And then we were riding on like the motor coach with my dad and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was your first time in the US or what?
It was my first time there alone. And I think I'd met, I think Michael Nakamura and Alex Satori beforehand. But I hadn't really met anyone else other than that. I hadn't even been to a contest yet. So when I rocked up with you and like your like clucky band, I was like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that was super fun, man. And then I remember we performed at that mansion. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, dude, I do remember that
mansion we went to.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And, so, like,
and then
my dad had the business thing going on, and then you came and on stage, and he always puts like the yo-yo story because in his like business presentation, because like that's just how he kind of presents. And so like he brought us up, he brought me up, and then since you were there, he's like, yeah, let's bring Brandon Vu out from Australia in front of all these business people.
Well, you know, it turned out all right. I mean, I feel as if we did an impromptu freestyle, so it was but it was a good experience, man. It was like a lot of fun. So thanks for inviting me and thanks for showing me around that day. And coincidentally, actually, I actually wanted to start this interview with speaking about your dad, because I feel as if you can't really get into the Evan Nagao story without, you know, having the precursor there. So I, you know, as it's a little bit, you know, facetious. How did your dad get into yo-yoing, and then how did that translate to yo-yoing as we know it today? And then where did you come into it?
Okay, so my dad's story is actually super, super interesting. So he was supposed to be a construction worker, like a general contractor, basically type of thing. Cause my grandpa was a general contractor. So he always like was studying to do that and like trying to get into that. And he was in college for a while. But what happened, which is super interesting, super crazy. He got into this crazy motorcycle accident where this
Oh.
guy like going like, I think he was going like 40 miles per hour and the other guy was coming the other way like 60 miles per hour and they head on collided. Like he crashed into this giant truck and like he like nearly died. He broke every single limb in his body. Somebody's calling me. Hold up. Let me just turn it off. Yeah, it was crazy. So he almost died basically. And he was in the hospital for like so long. Like he was like basically like for like 2 months just trying to recover from this thing. And in that time, he couldn't like study. He couldn't do any construction or anything like that. So he ended up actually learning to fly kites because that was like the only thing he could do because he's in his wheelchair. Just like all of his limbs are pretty much broken. So all he can do is like fly these kites. So he loved kites so much though. Like from that, he like discovered his joy for kites. So he decided like when he was 21 or so to open up his own kite shop in Hawaii. And so when he finally opened up his kite shop, then he realized that, you know, there's a bunch of other toys that he wanted to sell. And yo-yo happened to be one of them. And somehow he figured out that there was a way to promote yo-yos through the card system that would just like completely like just it would sell like a mad like wildfire, right?
And what do you mean by the card
a lot of money
system?
from that. Okay, so the card system is basically like if you ever go on Yo-Yo Expert, they have like the different levels of tricks. So you have the basic card, which has the basic tricks, the second intermediate card, which has the intermediate tricks. And the interesting thing is like after you complete like each card, you get like a prize yo-yo for completing like the 10 tricks on the first card and then 10 tricks on the next card.
Yeah.
So everybody was trying to do it. And then it's interesting because like all the other kids are like, well, if he can do that, like I could easily do that. So everybody started kind of like going viral. It became this like viral trend.
The old school way to go viral, you know, like kind of like old
like
school TikTok
viral
challenges or whatever.
I guess so. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you know, just kind of like thinking about it now, it's like the underlying logic remains the same, right? You see someone else do it and then it looks appealing and then you jump onto it and then you grab some of your friends onto it. So really it's kind of interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely still the same concept, but just different medium.
So from here, you know, it goes absolutely gangbusters. You know, yo-yos become the hip new thing. And like, draw a timeline for people. Like, whenabouts would this be?
So I think in around 1986, he started doing yo-yos. I don't remember when he did kites. He was doing it for a while, though, but in 1986, he started doing yo-yos. And then 95-ish, he took yo-yos to Japan. 96, he made, you know, millions of dollars from yo-yos. 97, 98, 99 were all like humongous years for yo-yo.
It's crazy. I remember you were saying that like he made like $30 million just off of yo-yos and you're just like, holy crap. I don't think that's been eclipsed ever since.
Yeah, it's definitely hasn't been even close to that since then. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I'm really pretty lucky because I think my dad learned a lot through creating like such big financial success. And like there was a lot of hurdles to jump through. So now that I'm going through my like, you know, journey of being a musician and stuff, like I've been learning a lot from him on how to kind of overcome some of the like the obstacle stuff. And it's not easy to be a successful business person, man, or like be successful in some sort of independent journey. So I really, really have been appreciating all like the wisdom and the stuff that he's been teaching me to help me like succeed in yo-yo and in music and whatever venture I find myself in.
Absolutely. And I definitely sensed that dynamic when I was kind of like hanging out with you guys way back when. It's like he's very, very wise and he's kind of just, what's the word? Kind of groomed you to kind of take on these challenges yourself, so to speak. But let's wind the clock back just a little bit. So 97, we have Evan, who's the OG yo-yo baby. and you get into yo-yoing. How does that, like, I suppose you're like 1 year old. How do you get into yo-yoing? How does that work?
So yeah, basically, I don't even know because I was 1 year old, right? So I
Yeah.
don't really have any memory of it. But basically, there was a bunch of yo-yoers at our house all the time, and yeah, it was just interesting. It was like, I guess I just saw everybody yo-yoing, and I just picked it up naturally. And that's pretty much the story. I don't think there's any.
There's just nothing in that. But I mean, like, on top of that, like, you're literally like the OG child prodigy, right? Like, you're on Jay Leno. Like, do you remember that? Like, there's recordings of it, but do you have any memory of it whatsoever?
I sometimes wonder if I actually remember or if I just remember because, like, I've seen the tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely remember going in the limousine out to Jay Leno's like studio, right? And they had like champagne, I remember. And then like my mom was like had some champagne, and then there was like apple cider for me.
That's so
that was really cool.
But you know what's super interesting? It's like you were landing like trapezes and stuff when you were like 1 year old in like 96. Like, that's crazy. Like, so you definitely have. Like,
I don't know. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. I think I was probably doing maybe like Rock the Baby and stuff. Maybe not trapeze when I was 1, but I was probably doing trapeze at like maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah. So it's not really that far off. But then what happens? How come you don't kind of just stretch it out? Like, did you take a bit of a break from that?
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I really can't express it, I guess, because I don't know. I don't really remember. I think I just went to school. Like, I entered kindergarten at 6 years old, and then I just started meeting friends and stuff. And probably my time was just taken and being used in other places. So I don't know. I don't.
Yeah,
even
it wasn't
remember,
like a conscious decision to phase out the yo-yos. Was it becoming less of a thing for your dad as well? Was like the yo-yo boom kind of eclipsed and it just became less of a thing?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. So I don't know if it was necessarily because my dad stopped doing yo-yo so much, but definitely that probably played some sort of impact in my yo-yo development for sure.
Okay. So then when do you get back into it? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Let me think. Yes, I do. So I remember I was in Redondo Beach at this kite shop called, I think it's called Sunset Kite Shop or something. I don't even remember. But it was this interesting place that I remember just looking at these Yo-Yo Factory yo-yos. I saw this Yo-Yo Factory California, and it was like $100, and I was like, that's so crazy because like like a yo-yo to me was like $20. Like Raiders were like the most expensive yo-yos at the time. So I was just like, what could be so good about this yo-yo? And you know what I mean? And so this was like when I was probably in eighth or ninth grade in like 2009. And so like the guy at the shop, I forget who it was, the owner of the shop, like taught me how to bind. I didn't know how to bind, so I was like just such a noob, and I was like, dude, this guy sucks. Like,
why isn't it coming back up?
Yeah. So I learned how to bind, and then I started just learning. I remember the whole trip because we went on like kind of a family vacation to like Disneyland. The whole trip, like we're at Disneyland, I was just trying to learn Spirit Bomb, dude.
Like, well, that's pretty fast, dude. I mean, I feel as if Spirit Bomb is like a pretty advanced trick, and you just picked up this unresponsive. But I guess you were yo-yoing at 1 year old, so you had kind of like the foundational stuff to it.
Yeah, but it was still like there was still like I felt like such a noob back then too, and I think that's an interesting thing that people don't realize is like a lot of people think that because I was yo-yoing at such a young age and all this stuff that like I just was like had this lucky talent or whatever, but then if you look at the videos from like 2009, like I suggest people go watch those videos, like crazy yo-yo tricks from 2009.
Yeah, dude, I saw some of those videos. It's like, man, it's like you're pretty raw, dude.
Yeah, it was very, very like I was very at the beginning stages of my modern yo-yo career. So I think
Mm.
that'll give people inspiration if they think like, oh, like if they ever find themselves comparing themselves to like more competitive or professional yo-yoers, they can just go look back and realize like we were all like that at one point.
Yeah, we all sucked at one point. It's actually interesting because I was actually under the impression that you were just like there was never a point where you actually sucked because like, you know, you're doing like around the worlds and stuff and trapezes at like 2 or 3. And then when I saw those videos, it's like, man, you really just look like a beginning newbie yo-yo player who just picked up the yo-yo like a couple months ago. So it's kind of I mean, that's no means like a dig or anything, but it's generally like it gives you a
No,
perspective
yeah.
to
Yeah,
on like
it's
how
totally honest. I
like
mean,
even you have to work for it, right?
yeah, I mean, everybody, I think you have to work for what you want. And so,
Mm.
I mean, even just like that's what I realized like right now, just I'm going to kind of shameless self plug right now, but just
Yeah.
I've been promoting my album, man, for that
Mm.
I'm releasing on shameless self plug warning on November 16th my album's coming out, Love by Evan from Heaven. But so I've been working on that, and just it feels it's like a different kind of work, man. Like yo-yoing is
Mm.
like one type of work, but
Mm.
like
Mm.
doing a full album and like doing all the promotion for it and everything, and oh man, it's like, but you know, it's like it's kind of like levels. Like you learn how to win the World Yo-Yo contest, you put in
Yeah.
the work to get there, and then the next thing is like you have to work harder, and but it's also very satisfying.
Mm. And I'd imagine, like, without jumping too deep into this tangent, but I would imagine it's like the yo-yoing world is is just this like niche little thing, right? There's probably only about maybe, I don't know, 500,000 of us in this entire world, right? Like, so if you really crank it out, you can get to the top. But with music, it's like there are millions of people who want to get there, right? So you have to kind of, it just exponentially drives it upwards.
Yeah, but what I realized too, though, in music, which is interesting, is like I skill wise, I'm like basically doing the equivalent of Brain Twister in music right now. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like,
Okay.
but the interesting thing is, there's like so many people in music that are literally just doing Brain Twister over and over again, and like people love that shit. You know? Like in yo-yo it's like, okay, yeah, brain twist or whatever, but in music, like for some reason all these pop songs, like there's like very little skill involved, they're not really that talented, you know, they're just
Mm.
doing the same 3 chords over and over again. But
Yeah.
like I mean, it's literally just like I said, just doing brain twister over and over again, or just doing like Eli hops maybe is a better example. And
You know
yeah,
what though?
it's
I think that I mean, of course, you know, you've got more experience in the music industry, but I think it's probably more like the scoring system, you know? It's this idea that like the players who technically win the contest, they know these speed combos, they know these rail combos, and it's very kind of easy to look at the guy who's winning worlds and being like, "Oh yeah, you know, all he does is just do these point hold tricks like yada yada yada." And then you go and try to win a contest using that strategy, and it's actually not that easy, you know? it
mm,
Do you think
no,
it's like
that's true.
that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, I think that it definitely is when you start to get into it, for sure. Because
Mm,
I was thinking before I got like really deep into music, like listening to pop songs on the radio, just being like, oh, that's so easy. Like I could
yeah.
do that like any day. But then I think a lot of musicians say that. But then at the end of the day, they try to like do it and they actually can't, you know? So
Mm,
that same thing for yo-yo. Like I learned that do it like trying to win worlds like for so many years. And I just
yeah,
thought it
yeah.
was really straightforward. But there's actually a lot of um, there's a lot of complexity to the simplicity, and it's hard to explain this
Yeah.
the proper way.
Mm,
But like there's like so many like at the end of the day, you see this routine and it's so simple, you just
mm,
condense a bunch of tricks as fast as possible.
mm,
But
mm,
then there's a lot of thought that goes into each like simple trick. So you'll
mm.
be choosing from like 1,000 different tricks, and then you'll settle for only like 100 tricks that you're gonna do. So you see the simple tricks that are being displayed on the actual
Yeah,
routine, but
yeah.
then in reality there was so much that went into making that. And so same thing for music. Like you
Mm,
listen to like some crazy like simple melody that's like just like so simple, like 2-note melody or like
yeah.
something, you know, it's like and you're just like, how does this, but then at the end of the day, probably that person went through so many different iterations of the melody to get to that point. So you think that like that they just made that in like 10 seconds because it's so simple, but like but like what really happened was they were really, you know, working through a bunch of different like ways that it could be, and then finding out that one like condensed like best trick possible, you know.
Yeah. And then once you get that, it's just like, then it's like, oh yeah, that's easy, I could do that. But it's like, it's that creative process, that process of churning through, facing the resistance, process of elimination that no one really thinks about, which is interesting actually. You know, out of all of the world champions who I've interviewed on this podcast, you know, I'm not like name dropping or anything, you know, just not trying to, but
cloud chasing, dude.
Cloud chasing. But you know, you were the one who I had a chance to meet beforehand. So it was like, I was kind of like, I had like a seat on the sideline, so to speak, to be like, okay, what does it look like when someone actually goes out and tries to win this thing? And it's really interesting. And, you know, I kind of want to dig into that a little bit deeper. You know, you get into yo-yoing 2009, and then slowly but surely your skill kind of gets up to this level where you're a pretty solid player. So take me back to like what got you to like 2015, 2016. What was your thought process then?
So 2015, I guess it was the same thing that we just talked about. It was like I had these really big tricks, like the one where I roll on the floor and shit. And like I just thought like, dude, there's no way I can lose nationals or worlds like doing this trick. It's just the best trick ever. It's just gonna win me. And so I did it, and I was like, and like I didn't end up winning. Actually, 2014 actually was the year that I felt that. And then 2015, I just was like, okay, so now I know how the rules work a little bit, so I know that it's not going to win, but I don't really care. I'm just going to be the people's champion, you know? Yeah.
And actually,
then, oh yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting because I feel as if like 2015, you were still like, it's not as if you were like, you know, pack filler. You came like what? You were quite high up there. You were like fourth or whatever for 2015.
Yeah.
So
for
it was like you were kind of getting it,
or
right?
for nationals, I was fifth. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I think I was getting it, but I think as time went on, I started to realize that there's so many different levels to understanding judging, and then also there's a lot of politics involved too, man. Like I don't want to, you know, I don't want to add drama to anything, but like, you know, I personally was never a judge for any, or like one of the head judges for any of the big contests, but actually maybe I was, I don't remember. I might've been a judge for nationals in 2019. I can't remember, but anyways, no, not 2019. I wasn't there. No, I don't think I was. I remember I was a judge for something, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But the point is that a lot of the, just by the nature of, you know, who understands like good yo-yoing, usually a lot of the judges end up, or the people that like make the rules end up being the people like actually competing, which is like pretty interesting, I think. But it makes sense because they're the ones that know what good yo-yoing is, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to have like some guy, like some amateur like guy just making the rules and stuff. You want to have the pros have a say in rule creation. So that makes total sense. But in that regard, I started to learn more about that aspect. There's the politics, and then there's also just like understanding how different regions will judge different things. Sorry, my texts are going crazy. But so you'll notice that Europe judges a certain way, Japan judges a certain way, US judges a certain way. So there's so many different levels to understanding like the the nuances of how the judging system works. And so like that year in 2018 when I won, like the whole year I literally committed my whole life to winning worlds. And I spent like 2 weeks in Japan. I spent like about like 10 days in Europe, and like just spending time with the judges, trying to figure out how they judge.
Yeah.
And then
I definitely want to zoom in onto that. You know, like what was it like? So did you, and I spoke to Gentry about this as well when he kind of went on to his his kind of Japan sabbatical, and he was like, it's funny because everyone's like, Gentry trained in Japan, now I need to go train in Japan. But like when you ask Gentry about it, that wasn't really his intention to go training in Japan, so to speak. But I feel as if it was for you. So what did you do when you went to like Europe or when you went to Japan? Like, what was that like? What was a day in the life like? Did you have like a strategy going in to like soak up as much as possible?
Yeah, pretty much. So I went to, like, for example, I went to Europe and just talked to every judge that I could and really got to figure out like who judges at Worlds, like every single guy that judges at Worlds, and literally like, all right, click my freestyle. What is like, and I would like literally ask like, what is this score? What is this score? And then I go to Japan and then, talk to every single judge there and ask them, what is this score? What is this score? Okay, if I do this trick this way, does it score 2 points versus 1 point? And blah, blah. So I literally had to figure out like how every judge clicked. And then what I would do is I would take, like, let's say I had a trick that scored like 3 clicks in Japan and like 1 click in the US and 2 clicks in Europe. So I'd average out the clicks of that. So I'd say like this trick is worth about 2 clicks, and I'd figure out which tricks are most efficient click wise. So it was like a very mathematical thing, dude.
Yeah, no, but you'd be surprised, players these days actually do kind of think like that. And I know it's more common than you might think. So is that kind of the metric that you would use? You'd be like, all right, I've got this freestyle, I've got this trick, and the trick that I'm going to put in is going to have the highest average across, and whatever has the highest average, I'm going to put in.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you also have to consider there's so many layers to it, right? Because you also have to consider all the evals, and then you also have to consider the risk, right? So actually, what I would do, this is adding another layer. So so if I were to get into the full like thing, it's literally like quantum physics. Like it's like crazy.
No, dude, this is a yo-yo podcast, man. Like everyone who's listening is gonna eat this shit up. Like get into it.
Yeah. Well, okay, so for the click, so if you want to get a little deeper, I'll get a little deeper in it. So like you have every judge will click it about a certain amount of points, right? And then you'll average out to figure out how much the average amount of clicks that you'll get for a certain trick is. And then you'll also have to take into consideration the risk factor. So I would do a trick like 10 to like 50 to 100 times, figure out my ratio of hitting that trick. And so I would calculate the amount of points that it's worth times the ratio of percentage that I hit the trick. And then that's like the true value of what the trick's actually worth.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then how much, now that you know the actual math, dude, I fucking love this. How much, now that you know the actual math to it, how much does practice kind of increase the efficiency of a trick? Because I'd imagine, when you first kind of put a comma together, it's a little bit shaky. But then if you really drill that thing down, you might be able to get a high risk trick into a relatively low risk trick.
Yeah, it's everything. Like when I was practicing for Worlds in 2018, I practiced for a whole year. And at the beginning of the year, I was probably hitting like about -20 or so. And literally when Worlds came, so this is really interesting. Well, by the time Worlds came, I knew that if I hit like a -15 routine, I would still win. And by Worlds, I was hitting literally like a -1, -2 routine every time. But when I got on stage, so this is pretty like actually a little sad, but it's like totally fine because I ended up winning anyway.
Yeah.
But I was really, really, really sick at Worlds, like incredibly sick in 2018 at Worlds. I had stomach flu and I had no energy because I had literally been puking and shitting out like every bit of calories that I had for like the last like 7 days in China, because China is just like a little dirty. So I was so sick, and like, but I ended up hitting like literally the worst, like least clean routine that I'd hit in like maybe months, like 2 months. Like it was the least clean routine that I hit, but I'd worked everything out so definitively that even like I went like -13, maybe 14, even doing the worst routine. I literally hadn't hit a routine that messy, like the whole, like for like 2 months straight. And so, but like I worked everything out, the math so like strategically that like even hitting the worst routine I possibly could have hit, I ended up still
winning
the title. Yeah. So that's I feel like when it comes to success in any endeavor, like I'm doing this with music too. Like you just are so committed to it that like
Mm.
no, like there's no way you can lose. Like no matter
Yeah.
what happens, there's no way you can
Just
lose. And like that's kind of like the mindset that it has been pushing me forward in all of my adventures with yo-yo and with music and everything.
yeah, man. It's crazy like how much thought you put into it. You know, something that I want to square with that is that you have always and you know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Even when you didn't really understand how the scoring system worked, something I've noticed about you, which still holds true to this day, is that you've got this like ability to get the crowd hyped. I don't know if it's just like people like you and they like your tricks and you're just doing bangers, but can you boil that down to a like communicatable strategy? Can that be boiled down? Like, how do you think about getting the crowd engaged for a freestyle?
Yeah, so I'll give you like the secret, but it's not as obvious, or it doesn't make so much sense logically, I think, but it
Mm,
is the secret. So really it's really honestly a spiritual thing. It's that you have energy, and when I go out, I know that I have a lot of energy inside, and I try to spread that energy across the crowd, right? So but so then you'd ask like, well, how do you build that spiritual ability
mm,
to connect with people energetically in that like kind of woo woo way, right? So what
mm,
I'll just
mm,
say is that for me, meditation has been so important for me.
mm,
Just getting connected to, I think, and grounded to like just myself, and then in that silence you kind of can um you tap into something greater than yourself. That's the only way that I can say it. And it doesn't logically it's hard to really like understand the quanta, or like the physics or the science behind it, but there is some explanations. There's
mm,
electromagnetic fields and blah blah blah, all this different stuff. But what I will say is that if you try it, if you like meditate every day for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes every single day for like a whole year, I guarantee that your charisma will go up, like your whole field of reality will shift. And
mm,
um yeah, so that's all I can say is, if I were to give a very practical advice, like it
mm,
sounds like
mm.
pretty funny, but just like meditate every day, like seriously.
Yeah. No, dude. I resonate with that, and I think you know there are probably a few listeners who would just be like, "Dude, that's the most woo-woo thing I've ever heard." But what I can attest is that, dude, like, I don't know if I've ever told you about this, but you probably get this a lot. Like, whenever I'm around you, you literally do like radiate positivity. Like, you're like the nicest motherfucker I've ever met. Like, it's like it's contagious. So if anyone's kind of just like, you know, it's an actual thing. Like I'm not sure if it can be explained down to a science, but it is definitely perceivable. And
Yeah,
maybe that's
there's
just
aspects
because,
of it that can be described by science, but
mm,
yeah, if you really, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think any of the explanations or any of the logical stuff really matters. Like at
mm,
the end of the day, it's like you do something and then you get a certain result, so
yeah.
uh, you know
But then how does that square with like, you know, getting the crowd hyped? Like, you know, is that just an ethereal thing that like you're just positive and people want to get hyped? Or is it like is that something you can break down into I don't know, stage performance and presence and smiling or stage use? Can you translate those two there?
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, it gets really complicated. I do understand it on a scientific level,
Mm.
but it's something that I think would be too much to explain right now on the
Yeah.
podcast. It has to do with your serotonin, basically,
Mm.
and how different, like, and in the animal kingdom, um, animals with higher serotonin create a certain reaction from other animals,
Mm. Mm.
and so you're trying to figure out how you can like basically boost the
Boost that
serotonin.
within yourself.
Yeah, you boost it. It is, but there's other things. So in terms of mindset, so there's like the same thing with like creating yo-yo train. There's like layers to how you understand things. Like there's the points layer, like where you understand just how general points are judged, and then there's like the politics layer where you understand like the politics
Mm.
of yo-yoing, and then there's the tricks layer. So there's all these different layers to it. So
Mm. Mm.
in terms of like charisma and learning that stuff, one of the layers is like your mindset layer, and I think that's really important. So like I never, I try, well, like sometimes I do, like at 2018 Worlds, I kind of went in with this mindset of to like try to win. But like whenever I try to win, that like affects my ability to be charismatic, because what happens is like the expectation is that I'm going to like hit all my tricks well and I'm going to do well. And then if you miss the trick, then your energy goes down because you get bummed out that you didn't hit the trick. Your expectation was that you're going to hit the trick and you didn't. But when you have the expectation just to put on a good show, no matter what you do, if you mess up, you just smile and you just laugh, like kind of like what you do, you know? And,
all I do is mess up.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant
no, but
you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. But it's true, man. Like I feel as if on the stage, like this is kind of like, I mean, I don't want to go too far away from yo-yoing, but it's kind of like people can sense expectations. Like when you give someone a compliment with an expectation, it's like you've got a sixth sense that you can kind of feel that, and it feels insincere. But when you just give someone like, or when you say something out of genuine earnestness, and you just like, you know, this is the thing, you can sniff out people's intentions. And I think, you know, what you were saying before, I think that might relate on like a larger scale as well. It's like if you're there to hit the tricks and that's like your primary motivator, that kind of like rubs the audience the wrong way sometimes as well.
Totally. And I think that's where meditation comes in, right? Because you question like, okay, so I know that what intentions are going to create a good result, right? Like if I have an intention to contribute to people, like contribute to the audience, make sure they're involved, get them enjoying things, like you'll know logically that that's the right intention. But then like, how do I stop thinking about freaking hitting my goddamn tricks on stage, right? So that's where meditation comes in, because it's the ability to focus your mind on the right intention, or like an intention that you like consciously choose. That's where the meditation part kind of like connects in there.
Man, dude, this is fascinating, man.
Dude, I love this stuff. I'm super glad that you're asking about all this stuff, man. This is my favorite type of conversation.
I feel as if something that a lot of people don't know, or don't know about me, or don't know about you, is that like I feel as if when we first connected, both our dads were like very into self-help. So when we first met, we already kind of clicked into this like self-help. We had read all the big, you know, self-help books. So it's kind of like I'm on that wavelength. I kind of get where you're coming from with this. So if this is turning everyone off because of all of the woo-woo side of things,
I mean, if it is, then dude, you don't want them as your subscribers anyway, dude. No, just kidding. No. Brandon's cool. Subscribing. Everybody subscribe to Brandon right now. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already.
Hit the subscribe button, everyone. Oh man, no, that's funny. But I want to so where do we go from this? I'm very curious because if we wind the clocks back just a little bit, when you were kind of figuring everything out, you were already a pretty solid player. Like 2015 Evan was a pretty good player. Like you had the tricks, you had the charisma, you had maybe not as an extensive or thorough understanding of the scoring system as you do now. But what I see as your kind of big break, and you know, if you feel free to disagree with that, was PNWR 2016, where you finally won, right? And like that wasn't like that. It wasn't like it was a small competition, but Gentry was there. Like there was a lot of other players that were there. Like, what did you do differently? What was the penny that dropped that pushed the thing over that got you to that point?
To win 2016 PNWR, honestly, it was a lot of luck involved. Like the judges just had to be, certain judges would click my tricks higher than other judges. Certain judges would prefer, you know, a certain type of performance over another, and it's very subjective in that regard. So there was a lot of luck involved, but at the same time, I think I just practiced a little bit more. I practiced maybe like 2 weeks in advance rather than like, you know, 2 days in advance. So there was just, I think it was just it was pretty much luck though. But I think that was definitely my big break, because that was when Yo-Yo Factory was really starting to, well, actually we started creating the edge at that point already, but once I won that contest, then it was pretty obvious that, you know, that there was some potential in the brand of the edge. And what I'll give it to also is just Ben McPhee, man. Like, for honestly, just him believing wholeheartedly in me, knowing that I was going to be successful in yo-yo, really was important to me, because I believed it too. But I think having somebody, especially your sponsor, feel that way, like, it was just like, it just really helped add to that belief that I could do it. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've spoken. Actually, two things I would add to that. First thing is also another shameless plug. I remember like us having a conversation very similar to where we are now. And I tell this story every chance I get. And we were talking and we were like, you know, man, I was like, you know what was really cool about your like monster video, where you like had that little expert at the end, and you were talking about how if I could control this yo-yo, it would like separate me from all the other players. I was like, man, that sounds really cool. It sounds like you're using like leading edge technology. And I remember you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, that is kind of cool. And I was just like, motherfucker,
that's so funny.
The edge came from me.
Yeah, people don't realize this, dude. Brandon Vu named Edge. That's a totally true story.
I wouldn't say I named it, but I definitely gave you like, it was like an impetus.
Oh, no, you totally named it. I remember this because I was like, leading edge, yeah, but that's like kind of a lot of words. Like, I want to just be like something like, and then you're like, well, maybe just, I don't remember if you said it, but I just remember somehow we established that edge would have been a better word or a better name for it. So I was like, edge would be cool. That would be really, really dope. And the other crazy thing that's weird is that my dad's first professional kite, because he used to be professional like kite flyer, was called the Edge.
Oh wow!
Too.
It was meant to be, man. It was up in the ether already.
Weird.
Yeah,
totally.
And you just needed to bring it into reality.
Yep.
The second thing I will say is that I've spoken to like Ben as well, like kind of just like off the cuff, and yeah, he's always spoken really highly of you. I remember there was this one time it was like, man, Evan's crazy. Like, if you ask him to run into a volcano, he'll be like, okay, how far does the run up need to be? He's like, that's the kind of person you are. So it's like, whatever he needs to do, he'll do it, and he'll do it meticulously. But yeah, man, no, I really think that PNWR, it was such an interesting time because, you know, you weren't rolling around anymore. You were still trying to play a little bit more technically. Like, it was starting to kind of like come together.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's true.
You know, it was kind of this, you were starting to kind of get the picture of it, but like it would be a few years later until you really kind of got everything to click.
Yeah, like I realized that I needed to, I don't know if I needed to, but I realized it'd be a lot easier to succeed in terms of like succeed with the judging system if I sacrifice some of my best tricks for some like shitty like tech combos.
Rail combos.
But I don't know, it's like I just did what I had to do, and that's the interesting thing about life too. I think it's yo-yo teaches a lot about life. I think, you know, like the fact that there's rules to certain games, and so sometimes you just got to play by the rules. It just depends what your intentions are. If your intention is to win, then you should probably play by the rules to most optimally, you know, utilize the rules. But if your intention is just to like have a good time or to put on the best show possible, or to, you know, like add the most value to people and in their entertainment, then you should just not follow the rules. So I guess my intention shifted after a while, because at first it was like, at first it was to win, and then I realized I wasn't winning, and so I was like, you know what, my intention is going to change to just like do super cool routines. And then later I was like, no, you know what, I actually do want to win, because I don't know, I just want to see what it's like, what it feels like to win. And then so I just ended up figuring out how to win.
Well, I feel
and honestly, wait, sorry, like cutting you off real quick, but like honestly, winning didn't feel as good as doing the best like routine that I could possibly do. And it's interesting though, the fact that I had to win. Like I had to win worlds to know that I never really had to win worlds at all. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's I thought you would say something like that, because what I was gonna say was it's kind of like you never really truly sold out. I feel as if you pulled from both sides, right? There was always like the intention in the back of your mind to put on a good show and to like do these things, but it was kind of just like, how can I translate that into a way that's gonna win?
Right. Yeah. So it was definitely like trying to kind of like synergize all the different aspects of like all different types of yo-yoing and all different styles and all different like the competitive side versus the performance side, like what you're saying. Yeah, it was definitely like trying to figure out how to do all of them at once. And actually ultimately when you get down to it, those are the routines that usually win, is the ones that do like everything like on a balanced level, or like not even balance. I wouldn't even say it's like you have 100% performance mixed with 100% tech mixed with
Just
100%
everything's just stacked.
everything. Yeah.
So I remember like you were just kind of vehemently like despising the scoring system, and you went on your little crusade to kind of win so that you could change the scoring system. Would that still be like a thing in the back of your mind right now? Or you're like, oh no, the scoring system's okay?
I would definitely change it. But the thing is, right now I'm super focused on music, and I really, at that point in time, the reason I wanted to change the scoring system was I thought that I could make a positive impact in the world through yo-yoing, just making it more entertaining and more allowing for people to express themselves more creatively rather than having so many generic tricks in the scoring system. So I really wanted that, and I still kind of do, but at the same time right now, I'm just so focused on my purpose with music, which is very, very similar. Actually, like almost identical, but like
it's
in
just
a
a different
parallel way.
medium. Yeah.
There's a different medium, exactly, but the same intention to allow people, bring people enjoyment and to, just allow people to have more positivity in their life and all this different stuff. And so as I started getting into music, I realized that, a lot of these desires in yo-yo are still well intentioned and still good, but like when I weigh out which one's going to have more of a positive effect in the world long term, I see that my energy is best spent focusing more on music. Although if I can do something like really like that's like simple, if I can just send like one message to like a head judge or something and have stuff change, like that would be really, really awesome.
That'd be good.
Not
That'd
that
be sick.
simple, man. There's a lot of politics.
I mean, I feel as if the system itself, I mean, I don't want to get into anything too political either, but it's just kind of intertwined, man. Like if you change one thing, you fix one problem and then create another one, right? Like let's say we're like, all right, we want to completely devalue speed combos, and everyone just does like hooks, and it's like that's equally as boring, right? So it's a topic that I think needs a lot of thought. But yeah, I feel as if you just have to balance so many stakeholders into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like the cool thing would be to have, like, if I were to change it, and maybe somebody could take this idea and run with it. Well, I think Ben McPhee and I both are aligned on this. Is like you just have different judging systems at different contests, right? So then, but the argument against that is that you want it to be really consistent so people can understand it more and blah blah blah. But I don't know, like I feel like, I don't know. I don't have too much energy invested into it right at this point in time, because if I get into it, like it's just not worth, spending so much energy on that. But if I were to change it personally, like on a very like simple, opinionated level, subjective level, I would love to see different judging systems at different contests, because that would allow some contests to be more performance oriented, which like that would be the contest that everybody wants to watch. That's where all the bangers are, like 44 Clash, Or, like, you throw 44 Clash like at other contests like around the world, and then you could have some that are more tech oriented where people can see how their tricks score and stuff and get more into the competitive clicking aspect of that. So yeah, it's just like I don't know, like again, I don't want to have to deal with any opinion, like any arguments. I don't, if you however it is now, it's great. It's great. But that's just my
Yeah.
own personal subjective feeling on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always kind of a contentious topic, but I think, all right, to kind of backtrack a little bit, I'm very curious about because you are a guy that has kind of figured out or very kind of figured out the way to win or figured out a way to win. So I'm very curious when someone says that's like, man, we put in a lot of work to win that contest. Like I put in a lot of work. My question is always like, what is a lot of work? Like, what did it look like when you were like grinding for worlds? Like, what does a day of practice actually look like?
Yeah. Sorry, everybody's checking their phone right now, so because my phone's going off. Yeah, basically a day of practice for me would just be 5 hours of practice, and that would be split between playing video games and doing, eating
5
food and
hours.
shit.
That's
But
crazy, dude.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
do it
But
alone?
before a year before Worlds, I was practicing alone 5 hours a day, every day, like without skipping a day, basically.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And then
But
you're gonna have
what I'll say is that it was like, for me, it was also a career too, because I was selling my yo-yos and that was my only source of income. So I didn't even see it like as an issue. It was just like, normal people go to work for like 10 hours some days, like, or like, like, so I'm really doing a lot less work than the average person who works a job. So I'm just grateful to be able to do my passion as a job. So that's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you put it like that, I guess it's you living the dream, right? You just play with yo-yos all day. But then, all right, so do you have like a process for kind of developing a routine? Like, let's say you had to go and compete at Worlds 2021. What would your kind of framework or strategy be to create a winning routine?
2021. So I
Hypothetically.
definitely, yeah, hypothetically, I don't even know, dude. I think just what I would do is I would start with any routine, like literally just freestyle, like record myself doing 3 minutes of yo-yoing, and then take that routine and just start doing it over and over again, and then start replacing the tricks and just refining each trick to be better and better and better and better. That's like been my process for, like even at Worlds 2018, I took my routine from EYYC 2017 and I just started refining it until it became good enough to win.
It's really interesting when you watch those two routines side by side. It's like they're completely different. Like there's elements that are the same, but it's like, man, you really kind of just like tinkered with that thing and like optimized it into like a beast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely a process that I just knew that it had to be the best that it could possibly be, and there was no other way around it. I mean, same thing for like my album that I'm working on. It's like, I'll finish the song and then like, I'll just start like listening over and over, and I'll realize like this little like thing, this kick needs to be a little like louder and like a little bit, but like everything needs to be like so fully optimized that it's like impossible not to like it,
Impossible not to like it. Yeah. And then you kind of like, it's
Yeah.
where like,
I mean, but yeah, it's subjective at the end of the day.
Subjective is, yeah. But there are first principles that kind of come with everything. I actually want to zoom in on this a little bit. And I know, I was going to preface this questions by whether this was true or not, but I think it is. 2018, to kind of set the stage for anyone who wasn't quite there. Like I remember like leading up to 2018 nationals and even Worlds, there was this big idea that like, holy crap, this is the most competitive year ever. Like, Worlds is going to be held in China. There's going to be like 800 registered players. It's going to be like whoever wins is going to have to like fight through like a crap ton of yo-yoers. And I saw a post from Yo-Yo Factory where it was just like, before nationals where everyone was like grinding and, kind of making their routines, you kind of just, you were like, nope, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna chill. Was that true? And could you like speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it was 100% true. I just meditated all day in China. Like not all
Really?
day. I
Well,
I
I mean,
really just chilled out. Because I think the problem arises when people are stressing so hard and they like put so much stress on their body by trying to practice, and like they didn't put enough practice in before. So
mm,
they have to like put in, they're practicing like, 5-10 hours like the day before the contest. And I just don't think that's a very positive thing. So I was putting in like 1 to 2 hours maybe in China of
and
practice,
then
but most of it was just meditation.
and what do you do? Like, what's a yo-yo meditation look like versus like a normal meditation?
It's just a normal meditation,
So
but
you
I'll
just
tell you what I do.
yeah.
Yeah. So basically at that time I was doing a certain meditation where I'd visualize the colors of the rainbow, and I'd visualize, like each color, like washing over my body
Mm,
one by one. And then when I'd get to violet, I would kind of enter into this, you could say like an enlightened state or something, but like just
mm,
more like this ethereal realm.
mm.
And so that's what I would do then. Now I do a different meditation. Now I'm doing this meditation where I just sit and focus on my breath, and then I chant like a little mantra, kind of like Om, like, or something like that.
Okay. And side question, do you do any like visualization? I've read about studies where like figure skaters, because it's so stressful in their body, what they'll do is they'll like visualize like a perfect figure skating routine. And I feel as if you're pretty like savvy to all this stuff. Do you do that with yo-yos?
I don't do it anymore, but I definitely did when I was competing. Like pretty much every night I don't know every night, but like a lot, most nights I would visualize my routine like in a very um like perfected way. I would just imagine myself hitting every trick perfect, and I would
Mm.
use the affirmation after visualizing myself hit the trick. I would use the affirmation perfect, 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 perfect. Like I'd do
Mm.
hooks perfect, 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 and
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Did you
So
find
that
that
was kind of the
helped?
process there.
I've tried to do that in the past, and what I don't know, maybe I'm like a feeble-minded kind of untalented player, but I can't like when I really try to like visualize a yo-yo string formation, I get a little confused. So I can't like
Me too.
imagine it a little like as perfectly as it would be. A lot of it's kind of muscle memory after a certain point. Did you find it helped? I'm
I don't
curious.
know if it helps. It's like impossible to really know. I mean, I won the contest. So, I mean, that's like the only evidence we have, but
It's
it
pretty
was, it
compelling
wasn't
so
just
far.
that. Yeah, it was, but it was also just a mix of a bunch of different stuff, So
Mm.
it's impossible to know if it was like solely the visualization that helped, or what really was the key factor. But it was really just a mix of everything.
Mm, yeah. One other thing that I kind of wanted to talk to you about as well is you kind of like let this little gem drop in one of your videos where you're like what you'll do before a contest, and you'll do like a whole bunch of other things which we can dig into. But one thing that I was kind of like interested about was this whole Wim Hof breathing thing. Like I feel as if that's
Mm.
kind of like blown up in the whole self-help world thing, but you were onto that pretty early. Like do you still do that prior to like a big performance or prior to like something nerve wracking where you need to be at your A game? Maybe explain it a bit as
Um,
well.
yeah, okay. Well, Wim Hof breathing, I think people should just look it up, but it's
Yeah.
basically it's just a certain technique to get a lot of oxygen into your body and into your brain. And yeah, I still do the Wim Hof breathing technique. I did it like yesterday, no, 2 days ago, and I took like a cold shower, and it was really good. But
Does it
yeah,
help
it's
you warm
just
up with your vocals?
it does not help me warm up with my vocals. It probably messes it up if anything, because there's so much, it dries out my vocal cords. But what I will say though is that I think just breathing, like doing conscious breathing, is so helpful. Like I don't
Mm,
know, like well, there's actually a lot of studies about this. Like when your breathing is in a fine rhythm, your heart palpitations, or your heart, not palpitation, but your heartbeat actually um, synchronizes a lot better, and it becomes more rhythmic as well. And we
mm,
don't know exactly why, but it's something to do with how the parasympathetic nervous system all connects. And so the point is that you know, you when you're breathing poorly, your body's releasing more adrenaline. It's causing more stress,
Mm,
and that
mm,
stress is causing cortisol, which cortisol affects serotonin in a negative way.
mm.
So the more
Yeah.
cortisol you have, the less serotonin. And like I said, serotonin affects your charisma and
Your
blah blah blah, all
charisma
this stuff.
and okay.
Yeah.
So that's why
So yeah.
you're still using that. That's cool, man. You know, something I've actually been really curious to ask you about is you know, you're an incredibly driven guy. You've been grinding. You know, you exude positivity. Was there ever a point where you got burned out from yo-yoing? This is a question I get asked a lot as well, and I don't really have a good answer. Is that something you could speak to? Did you get burnt out? How do you recover from getting burnt out? What's your view on it?
Yeah, it's funny because as you said that, it just turned to 4:20 p.m., which is funny because you said getting burnt out. But
It's
what were you
10:20 here,
saying?
so I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I don't think I ever got burnt out. I just think that for me, my focus is just always, my intention is always really clear. Whatever
Mm,
I intend to create, I'm going to create it. So, um, you know, if I'm really focused on creating something with Yoyo, I'm going to create something with Yoyo. But as my intention shifts, to like music, for example,
mm,
like my energy is just going in that direction. So it's not like it's not like the reason why, like I don't really want to do yo-yo as much, that's true, but the reason why I don't want to do yo-yo is not because I spent too much time doing yo-yo. It's just
mm.
that my
You're onto.
intentions are going towards this direction, so
Mm,
I wouldn't
yeah.
say it feels like getting burnt out in some ways because like there are times where I pick up a yo-yo and I'm like, this just isn't as fun, but I think
Mm,
it's really just my subconscious mind realizing like
just
as I'm
doesn't
playing with
move
the
you
yo-yo,
forward.
I'm like, dude, like you need to, like, not you need to, but like you should really think about working on your new song that you want to drop. And it's less about like a more like a so much of like you need to do this, but more of like, hey, like I really want to make this song right now. I'd rather like make this song because that's going to lead me to succeeding and living my purpose, which is to really help a lot of people through spreading positivity through music. So
Mm, mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's. I think one other thing I would kind of ask from there is that, like, I feel as if your underlying mission has always been to stay the same. You know, you've always been like this beacon of positivity, and like how you spread that positivity changes depending on what you're passionate at in a given time. One thing I've actually really wanted to speak to you about is your formula for going viral. I know you've spoken to a few of the other players about this, but I'd be super curious to get about this because you know, you've kind of got this formula to kind of like explode your like little influence. So could you speak to that? How do you do that in a yo-yoing context? And are there principles that are applicable to other mediums, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I think there's some aspects that are like a little like playing the game of virality, but I think
Yeah.
some of it's very straightforward. Like you just want to create as much energy as you possibly can marketing like one post, and then like
Mm,
any type of post, if it's Instagram, if it's YouTube, if it's Reddit, whatever,
mm,
like, but you put so much energy into it, and like it feels like you're chugging like a train, and
yeah.
you're just like pushing so hard, putting so much energy to get this freaking train to like go a little bit. But
Yeah.
then once you start going, like, you're going like 100 miles an hour down the track, and you're going
Mm,
like you're gonna be headed like, your post goes like miles and miles without hardly any effort. That's what
mm,
virality is, right? So
yeah.
I think a very basic principle is like you just got to put in so much energy into like getting the thing to blow up to a certain point, and then once it hits a certain threshold, then it'll just start taking off on its own. And then understanding that, just having the faith that by putting all this energy into what seems like not much, like 10,000, 50,000 streams or whatever, will eventually, having the faith that it'll eventually turn into a lot. And then there's
Mm,
other like gimmicky things that we would do, like on Reddit, how like
mm,
before we would, Ben and like the other Yo-Yo Factory people and Andre Boulay from Yo-Yo Expert, I would tell them when I was going to make a post on Reddit, and I would tell them to all give me gold, right? So they would all give me gold on this post, and so it would
What
start
does
showing
giving
up.
gold
Like,
mean on Reddit? Is that just a?
it just is like internet points. Like it's you. I think you pay for it, right? I don't really know exactly, but anyways, it was like this thing where posts that people gave gold to would be like higher up on the viewership thing, and it just stands out because then people are like, "Whoa, why did this post get gold?" You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like that. There's a lot of different gimmicky things that we did, but I think, yeah, it ultimately came down to the basic principle of just like putting so much energy into it and just having faith that it's going to blow up.
And I feel as if you've kind of like, I mean, when you were crafting the freestyle, you were also mindful of like what songs to use, what tricks to kind of do. That was also part of the master plan, so to speak. Like, so what are some of the things you included in your yo-yo routine that were kind of viral friendly, so to speak, or viral inducing?
Yeah, so definitely like just choosing the song was important. Like I know, for example, Freebird's a very easy to go viral song. It's just such a well-known song, and everybody's like play Freebird, you know. So um, yeah, and I think doing the knee slide, that was Gentry's idea, by the way. The knee slide was,
Oh,
dude,
really? Dude, that
this
was
is
so
super
sick.
interesting. Yeah, so yeah, the knee slide was like the highlight of the performance, and that's all credit to Gentry. Gentry's like,
Yeah.
dude, you know, we were like at like PNWR 2017 or something. He's like, dude, you know what you have to do? You got to do a knee slide on the speed combo. I was like, dude, that's so good. And we're just like tripping out about it. It's like, and so, yeah, it's amazing. Like, honestly, like this is what's so amazing about my life and about life in general. I think for anybody is, you know, they start to look at it and they realize that like so many people had contributions to my life. If I'm just talking from first person perspective, like you were the one that helped me name the Edge. You know, Ben McPhee took me in when I wasn't even like, when I was like in 2009, I wasn't even on the contest scene. Like Gentry helped me with the knee slide thing. And it's just like, I think what really like is important is just to realize and have gratitude for all these different things, and realize that like really you didn't do anything. Like when I really get down to it, everything that I've created and everything that I have in my life and everything that we all have in our lives was all created by, you know, our parents. Like our parents created us, and then they taught us our beliefs, and you know, like we're just so freaking blessed to just whatever our situation is, like to have whatever we have. None of it's really us. It's, you know, it's all, we've gotten so much help from so many different people, and that's super, super cool.
Yeah, man, I mean, I would agree with that. But I also think, you know, like you're not giving yourself enough credit. I think, well, I mean, at the very least, what you do is you make your intentions clear. Like, you know, it was very clear that like you wanted to win worlds. It was very clear that like you wanted to put on an awesome show. It was very clear that like you know, you wanted to become a musician, or you wanted to take yo-yoing seriously. And I feel as if like when you have this like level of positivity that you have, and then your intentions are very clear, you can't help but kind of attract allies, so to speak. So even that can kind of be boiled down to like, because it's very clear, like when you know, like when someone's a likable guy and you know what they're trying to do, it's almost second nature to be like, well, actually, have you thought about this? You know, so I feel as if you've also kind of integrated that into a strategic lens.
Totally. Yeah. Like basically what you said, it's all about intention, man. Life is about intention. Well, like literally what you intend to happen is what's going to happen. But like a lot of people unintentionally intend for the wrong things, because like they'll think about, because like an intention is literally just a thought about what could happen in the future, right? So if you literally think like, man, I'm scared that I might lose worlds, and you just keep having that intention, like I'm scared I'm gonna lose worlds, and you have that, well then you're just gonna lose worlds, right? So that's what meditation's for, right? It's set intention. You're able to control your ability to choose what you're consciously intending for. And the more you intend for something, the more it starts to manifest in your reality.
Mm. Mm. Speaking of like manifesting stuff, this is something I've been like very curious to ask you that I don't think you've really spoken about. 2019 Worlds, the fact that you composed a song, yo-yo to it, and like kind of created this like epic masterpiece. I've got to dig into that.
Okay.
Okay, let's start off with like how did you create the song for the what came first? Did the tricks come first or did the song come first?
Song came first. So
Okay.
the song came from watching I don't even remember. It was some movie and it
Yeah.
was like super epic, dude. It was so epic. And it was Avengers Endgame. It was Endgame.
That is
It's
quite
so
an epic.
perfect. The Last Stand, man. I don't want to give spoilers, but if you
Yeah.
haven't watched that, it's basically there's a really cool scene with Iron Man in the end. So I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I just was so I connected so deeply with it, like the metaphor of just giving all you got, no matter what the circumstances, like, and things might be totally doomed, but you just sacrifice everything you got or like put it all on the line and just to complete your mission,
Yeah.
and that's how I feel in life. Like that's how I feel right now doing music. Like everything that I got, all my energy is going to go into this album because like that's my mission in life. But so anyways, for that routine, like I started with that emotion that came from Avengers Endgame and I started composing the song. And I realized like, dude, this is going to be like my last stand. This is going to be like the last basically routine that I do in yo-yoing. So I'm going to make it about this and have that emotion of giving it your all for your last go. And it just started to come up like kind of organically. And then I started creating the different parts. I knew that I wanted to do some sort of speed combo-y part, so I added in that fast part at the end and or like towards the middle. And I don't know.
That's something I want to dig into. Like, something difficult with yo-yoing is like you lament like trying to find a song that's gonna work. How does that feel when you're making the song? Can you just like is it harder to make the song or is it harder to find the song?
It's definitely harder to make the song just because it takes a lot of skills. But
yeah,
what I'll say is that it was really fun to make it because I could add in a bunch of stuff that you just can't find. Like I added in lyrics about seasick and like, I got a lot of edges, but I'm still so smooth. Like, I don't know. It's just like some stupid but like, it was like, I got to like add in my own brand. Like, I don't know. It was just,
I love the
cool.
lyrics to that, by the way. Like I didn't really understand how deep some of those lyrics were until you put up that lyric video. And I was like, damn, it's just like, the Yeezys and the Eevees. I love that.
Yeah. If I want to make a better brand, I'll make a Yeezy. But I don't even remember the lyric. I don't remember my own lyrics. Yeah.
But yeah, it was, and then, so from you had the riffs, you had the music cues, and you had all of it. Like, was there a reason why you made it a little bit kind of softer? Was that to kind of softer at the beginning, or was that to kind of capture the emotion of the end game thing that you were trying to get?
Yeah, it's totally to capture that emotion. Like if you watch Endgame and you know the scene that I'm talking about, it's just like, when like in any type of cool movie, like when somebody's really struggling and you just don't think they're going to get through it, and like, or like any venture in life, like, or even in your own life, you're going through some tough shit and you're just like you're just so beat down by the world and you've tried everything and you can't do it. But then you just get back up and you use every little ounce of will that you have to like just do it. And I don't know, just that emotion is so powerful for me, and it just feels like such a strong motif that I connect so deeply with.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's also one thing to kind of have that like emotion and have the vision, but it takes time to create that song, right? So like when you were practicing for 2019 Worlds, was that as intense because you had to balance, well, I've got to make the song, I kind of want to be a musician, I'm kind of leaving the yo-yo world, with the kind of tenacity that you need to practice to win this competition, right? So did that kind of chew up into the time or energy that you would have spent on the yo-yo itself?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I wouldn't consider it as like it took away from my yo-yoing, because at the end of the day, by the end of 2018, I promised myself after I won Worlds, I would focus full time on music.
Mm.
So really what Worlds was for me was a way to um, really just start to, I guess, promote music, and then also um, to kind of say goodbye basically to the yo-yo community, you know? So yeah, I definitely didn't spend as much time like practicing the routine. But I definitely spent a lot of time working on that song. So that's what most of the time went into, and just working on all the music that I've been working on in general, and like honing my skills and stuff was what most of my time was spent on in 2019, and especially 2020. Like every hour is spent thinking about how I'm going to succeed in music and how I'm going to create different stuff. So
Yeah, no, that's super sick. This is such a shallow question, and I have to ask this because, like, most people are going to be like, why didn't you ask Evan that? This has been like of debate. You know that like there's a green triangle inside one of your freestyles, that last freestyle, and it's almost as if you deliberately miss it. Like, did you deliberately miss it, or did you just like go, like, did you miss it and then just go with the flow and then try to cover it up? This has been like a hotly debated issue in the Australian yo-yoing scene.
Yeah, well, it's pretty funny because I feel like either way, it's pretty badass.
Either way.
Yeah, I don't know if I should even answer that question because it might be fun to keep it up to debate. But I mean, do you guys really want to know? That's the question.
I think most people do. Well, it was like, I was like, hey guys, what do you want to ask Evan? They're like, did he actually deliberately miss it, or?
Yeah, so I did deliberately miss that triangle, and I intended for it to just be, because the funny part about it was that I had done that triangle before at nationals, and people didn't know that it was a fake triangle, right? So I wanted to like tell them, like let them know how I fooled the judges, but then at the same time also like do something that would blow their mind while I did it. So yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So we've kind of gone through the chronology, so to speak, and I feel as if there's so much more we could talk about, but I kind of want to zoom in. Like it's kind of been interspersed throughout this thing, but like music, where are you at with that, man? Like it's like you've had like a few songs come out, Love Calls come out, Me and Tiendes. I probably butchered that. Like what's coming next?
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, first of all, I really appreciate that. Like, because I can tell, I know that, this is a yo-yo podcast and stuff. So we talk about a lot about yo-yo and stuff. And I really appreciate you having me on the podcast because it definitely helps out, promote the album, which should be out by the time this podcast comes out.
Which should be out. So save
Love
the date, guys.
By Evan from Heaven.
And it's going to be an entire album, or?
Yeah, so it's gonna be a 10-song album. Might have a few more depending how hard I work before then. But yeah, 10-song album, and it's gonna be really, really, really exciting. I'm working on a lot of the marketing for that right now, and just finishing up like the last song. So I have 9 songs. So I'm finishing up the 10th song and getting it all mixed and mastered, all nice, and so yeah, just doing all the promotion stuff, like coming onto this podcast is all a part of that. So it's definitely a win-win, right? Because like we get to talk about yo-yos, we get to promote your channel, and then talk about music and get my album out there. So I really think that's dope. I appreciate win-win situations. That's like my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. And, with the album, I know you're always very thoughtful. You always have an intention behind it. What's the theme of the album? What are you trying to achieve with this album through the medium or through the art?
Yeah. So the album is called Love, right? And so once again, I'm just going to plug myself again just so people don't forget. It's called Love by Evan from Heaven on Spotify, Apple Music, literally everything.
Literally everywhere. SoundCloud as well.
Yeah. All the streaming platforms. So Just the intention for me is really to express a lot of the emotions that I have towards life and try to
Mm,
like, I feel like a lot of people tell me that my energy is like pretty infectious, you know? So
mm,
just feeling like if I could spread that energy through a medium that like hits like millions and millions of people, which it already
mm,
kind of does through Yoyo. But I
mm,
think, you know, being able to do that on such a strong level where people might be listening to the music in their car and stuff and spreading just the emotions that I have within me
mm.
and helping people to, I don't know, I guess like feel the things that I'm feeling and create um an emotional space for them um to live life in a more positive way, I guess is my intention for that. And also the other thing too is to my intention, I've always said this, is to inspire people to like utilize their gifts to positively impact the world.
Mm.
And I think that's one of my big things is like, you know, just by doing the thing that I'm doing right now, making music and stuff, hopefully inspiring people to use the things that they're good at to like help a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then obviously there's also intentions for myself too. Like it's also very
Mm.
selfish too, because I want to be successful and I want to have my name well known and I want to have credibility and all these different things. So I think those are the best types of goals when you have a selfish and a selfless reason that are very like interconnected
Yeah.
and interplaying, and it like fully pushes you
Fully
towards what you're
pushes
trying
you
to
there.
achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing that everyone's always a little bit. I feel as if most people don't think about it. It's like you can be motivated by more than one thing, right? Like you can be motivated to spread positivity, and you can be motivated for a host of other reasons, and they're not mutually exclusive.
Financially or yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So, yeah, no, but dude, like, I don't know, I can attest that you do radiate positivity. Like, there was a ton of stuff within this podcast that we didn't even talk about. Like, you visiting children's hospitals and everything that happened with stuff like that. But I think we've just about run out of time. And man, I just want to again thank you for coming onto the show and touching everyone with your positivity. And hope to catch up soon, man.
Dude, thanks, man. And dude, when you say that I radiate positivity, you definitely do as well. So it's like two really positive people coming together to create some cool shit, man. So dude, thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me promote my album and on your Yo-Yo podcast. You know, it
All
was
good.
really awesome, man.
That's sweet, man. Awesome, dude. All right, what I'll do is I'll stop the recording here. But yeah, dude, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. All right, so yeah, how did you guys find that? I definitely had so much fun with that entire conversation from start to finish. It's awesome to see kind of Evan continue to push the envelope in whatever he does. So be sure to check out Evan's new album, and yeah, that's basically it from me. So Evan from Heaven, go ahead, check that out. And if you guys enjoyed this, like, comment. Share this out with anyone who you'd want to, and that is it. So any comments, questions, criticisms, post them down below, and I'll see you guys next time.